Everything in life moves in cycles, like the rise and fall of the tides or the turning of the seasons. Beginnings are not permanent, and endings are not absolute. They are simply phases in a greater rhythm that we are all part of. Life doesn't move in a straight line, it spirals, constantly renewing itself through moments of creation and dissolution. To resist this natural flow is to fight against the very essence of existence, for nothing in this universe remains static. What was once vibrant and full of energy will eventually wither, only to give rise to something new. This cycle is not merely about the external world, it exists within us too. Emotions, thoughts, relationships all follow this same rhythm, arising, peaking, fading, and disappearing. Even our identities, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, shift over time, evolving as we experience the ebbs and flows of life. It is through these cycles that we grow, shedding what no longer serves us and embracing what we are becoming. Each ending is a teacher, each beginning a chance to explore the unknown, and each moment in between an invitation to immerse ourselves fully in the present. And the impermanence of pain. Pain, no matter how deep or consuming it may feel in the moment, is not a permanent fixture of existence. Like clouds that gather during a storm, it may obscure the light for a time, but it is destined to pass. Pain is transient by its very nature, a fleeting visitor that comes to teach us something and then leaves, though it rarely announces its departure. To feel pain is to experience a natural and necessary part of life, not as a punishment or a flaw, but as a reminder of our capacity to feel deeply and to connect with the fullness of our humanity. In the throes of suffering, it is easy to believe it will never end, that the ache will become a constant presence. But this belief itself often stems from our resistance to pain, our desire to hold it at bay or push it away. The more we resist, the more it lingers, feeding on our attempts to control it. Yet when we allow it to be, when we stop running from it or fighting it, we begin to see its impermanence. It flows through us, just as joy does, leaving behind not emptiness, but space for something new to emerge. Pain is not static, nor is it without purpose. It shifts and changes, revealing its many facets over time. What feels unbearable today may transform into something tolerable tomorrow, and eventually into a memory that no longer holds power over us. Its intensity diminishes as we learn to sit with it, observe it, and understand that it does not define us. Instead, it becomes part of the ever-changing landscape of our lives, a fleeting moment in the vast continuum of experience. We embrace the hurt. Hurt is not something to be feared or avoided, though our instincts often urge us to shield ourselves from its sting. It is a natural response to the breaking of attachments, the disruption of what was familiar, or the loss of something we once held dear. To embrace the hurt is to recognize it as a companion on the journey, a guide through the darker corridors of our inner world. It is not an enemy, but a messenger, whispering truths about our vulnerabilities, our desires, and the depth of our connection to life. When we allow ourselves to feel the hurt fully, without judgment or resistance, we uncover its transformative power. Pain has a way of stripping away pretenses, laying bare what is raw and real within us. It exposes the cracks in our armor, the places where we are most human, and in doing so it offers us a profound opportunity to grow. By leaning into the discomfort, we begin to understand the nature of our wounds and the stories they carry. We see not just the suffering, but also the love, the longing, or the meaning that gave rise to it. Hurt demands attention, and when we turn toward it rather than away, we start to unravel its layers. In its sharpness, it holds clarity. In its heaviness, it holds truth. It forces us to confront what we might otherwise ignore, and through this confrontation it teaches us resilience. To embrace the hurt is not to wallow in it or to let it consume us, but to meet it with openness and curiosity, trusting that it is as essential to our journey as joy and peace. It is an act of courage, a way of saying yes to the fullness of life, even when it is difficult. Ending as liberation. An ending is often seen as a failure or a loss, but it is, in truth, an opening, the release from the confines of what no longer serves us. It is the unshackling of the chains that bind us to a story, a relationship, or a phase of life that has run its course. When we cling to something out of fear of its end, we imprison ourselves in a space that has ceased to nurture us. To let an ending come is to free ourselves from the illusion of permanence, to step into the flow of change that is the essence of existence. Endings are not just conclusions, they are acts of creation. They make room for the new, for possibilities that were once obscured by the weight of what was. In the moment of letting go, we reclaim our energy, our focus, our capacity to dream and imagine. The space left behind by an ending is not avoided as a fertile ground where something different, perhaps something unexpected, can take root. To accept an ending is to honor the cycle of life, to recognize that every chapter, no matter how cherished, has its natural arc. It is to trust that closure is not erasure but transformation, a way of carrying forward the lessons and the love without being tethered to the form in which they arrived. The endings liberate us from stagnation, from the comfort zones that slowly become cages, from the habits and patterns that keep us from growing into who we are meant to be. Healing as integration. Healing is not about returning to what was or erasing the pain of what has been. It is a process of integration, a weaving together of broken pieces into a new and perhaps even more intricate whole. When we are wounded physically, emotionally, or spiritually, a part of us feels fractured, separate from the person we believe we are. Healing, then, is the act of reclaiming those fragments, not to restore them to their original state, but to transform them into something that carries both the scars of the past and the strength born from surviving it. In integration, we do not deny the hurt or push it away. We sit with it, examine it, and allow it to inform us. The pain becomes a part of our story, not as a source of weakness, but as a wellspring of wisdom. Every scar, visible or invisible, is a testament to what we have endured and what we have learned. It is through this acknowledgement of our wounds that we begin to rebuild, not by discarding the brokenness, but by embracing it as an essential aspect of who we are becoming. Healing as integration requires patience and self-compassion. It demands that we face the discomfort of our pain and the vulnerability it reveals. Yet it also invites us to find meaning in that vulnerability, to see it as a doorway to greater understanding and connection. Integration is not a linear process. It ebbs and flows, weaving moments of clarity with moments of doubt. It calls for acceptance not of the harm itself, but of the fact that it has shaped us in ways that cannot and need not be undone. Healing is the art of bringing together the past and the present, the hurt and the hope, into a tapestry that reflects the fullness of our humanity. Letting go of control. Control is a comforting illusion, a story we tell ourselves to make sense of an unpredictable world. We believe that by holding tightly to plans, outcomes, and expectations, we can shape life to fit our desires. Yet the harder we grip, the more life seems to slip through our fingers, reminding us of its inherent unpredictability. Letting go of control is not about surrendering to chaos, it is about releasing the need to surrender to the present. The present moment is all there truly is, yet we often resist it clinging to memories of the past or anxieties about the future. To surrender to the present is not to abandon responsibility or ambition, but to fully inhabit the now, to immerse ourselves in the richness of what is unfolding before us. It is a conscious act of letting go of the mental chatter that pulls us in 1,000 directions and returning to the simplicity of being. When we surrender to the present, we stop waging war against reality. We cease trying to make the moment conform to our expectations and instead allow it to be what it is. This surrender is not a resignation, it is a recognition that the present holds everything we need, even if it does not look the way we thought it would. It is an acceptance of life as it is, not as we wish it to be. The present moment is a refuge, a place where we can lay down the burdens of regret and worry. It is in the now that we find clarity, for the past and future exist only as constructs of the mind. By surrendering to the present, we align ourselves with the flow of life, stepping out of resistance and into harmony. This surrender invites us to engage with our experiences fully, whether they are joyful, painful, or mundane, knowing that each moment is unique and fleeting. Surrendering to the present also requires trust in ourselves, in the process of life, and in the idea that whatever is happening now is part of a larger unfolding. It asks us to release the need to control outcomes and to simply be with what is. In doing so, we cultivate a deeper awareness of our own existence, allowing us to appreciate the beauty and complexity of the moment without judgment or expectation. The art of release. Release is not an act of surrendering to defeat or giving up. It is an art of deliberate and conscious letting go of what no longer serves us. Just as an artist steps back from a painting, allowing the work to breathe and reveal its true form, so too must we step back from our attachments, our past, and our anxieties. The art of release requires discernment, for it asks us to evaluate what in our lives we are holding on to out of fear, habit, or a misguided sense of duty. To release is to free ourselves from the grip of the past, the weight of accumulated experiences that no longer contribute to our growth. It is to recognize that holding on to something, whether a belief, a relationship, or a memory, often ties us to a version of ourselves that is no longer relevant. The act of releasing does not erase what has been, but it allows us to clear space for what is to come, uncluttering our hearts and minds. Release requires vulnerability, for it means opening ourselves to uncertainty, to the unknown. We may fear what will happen when we let go, imagining that something essential will be lost. But in truth, release is an act of trust. It is trusting that life, in its infinite wisdom, will guide us in the right direction, even when we do not fully understand the path. Just as the seed must release itself from its shell to grow into a tree, so too must we release the old in order to make way for the new. The art of release is also an act of self-compassion. It is a recognition that we do not need to carry everything with us, that it is okay to set down the burdens we have accumulated along the way. It is a loving invitation to allow ourselves to be light, unencumbered by attachments that no longer align with our evolving selves. By releasing, we create space not only in our lives but in our hearts, where new opportunities, insights, and experiences can enter. The illusion of ownership. Ownership is a concept we cling to deeply, believing that possessing something, whether it be a material object, a relationship, or even an idea, somehow provides us with security or a sense of permanence. But in truth, ownership is an illusion, a construct of the mind that creates a false sense of control. We tell ourselves that we own our possessions, our time, or even our identities, yet the reality is that nothing is truly ours in the way we imagine. When we claim ownership, we act as if we can possess something indefinitely, as though we can control its fate or define its value. But the truth is that everything is in a constant state of flux. People change, objects decay, circumstances shift, and even our beliefs evolve over time. What we think we own today may be taken from us tomorrow, or it may simply lose its meaning as we grow and transform. The more we cling to the idea of ownership, the more we bind ourselves to a limited, fragile concept of reality. The illusion of ownership often stems from a desire for permanence in an impermanent world. We long for something to hold on to, something that will remain constant amidst the tides of change. Yet, in reality, the very act of clinging to something is what binds us to it. We don't truly own anything, we are merely caretakers for a time. Our possessions, our relationships, our roles, they all pass through our lives, and in the end, they too are subject to the flow of life. When we let go of the illusion of ownership, we liberate ourselves from the need to control or possess. We allow things to come and go freely without attachment or expectation. We begin to see that we are part of a much larger dance, where nothing is truly owned, but everything is shared in the great web of existence. By releasing the need to possess, we discover the freedom that lies in simply being, in experiencing, in flowing with the changes that life brings. The freedom in acceptance. Acceptance is often misunderstood as passive resignation or defeat, but in truth it is one of the most powerful acts of freedom we can experience. It is not about agreeing with everything that happens or surrendering to injustice or suffering, but about acknowledging the reality of what is without resistance. Acceptance is the recognition that life in all its forms is happening whether we want it to or not. To accept something is to step into alignment with the flow of existence, to release the struggle against what cannot be changed. When we resist, we tie ourselves to the very things we wish to avoid. We create mental and emotional tension by wishing things were different, and in doing so, we prolong our suffering. Resistance comes from the desire to control, to impose our will on the world, and when we fail to make things conform to our expectations, we feel frustrated, helpless, or angry. Acceptance, on the other hand, is an act of liberation. It allows us to see things as they are, to release our grip on the need to change them, and to move forward with greater peace. The freedom in acceptance comes not from giving up, but from giving ourselves permission to stop fighting against life. It allows us to stop wishing for things to be other than they are, and in doing so, it opens the door to new possibilities. When we accept the present moment, we stop trying to control it and allow ourselves to respond with clarity, creativity, and calmness. Acceptance does not mean we condone everything, but it means we are no longer defined by our resistance to it. In acceptance, we find freedom because we stop being prisoners of our judgments, expectations, and frustrations. We see that the more we accept what is, the less we are dragged down by it. We learn to meet life as it comes, with openness and understanding, knowing that every experience, whether joyful or painful, is part of the unfolding of our existence. Through acceptance, we reclaim our power to choose how we respond, rather than being ruled by our reactions. Wholeness through letting go. Wholeness is often misunderstood as something we must strive to achieve or accumulate. Society teaches us that in order to be whole, we must possess certain things: relationships, success, security, and avoid loss or vulnerability. We spend much of our lives grasping for these markers of completeness, believing that they will make us whole. However, true wholeness does not come from accumulation, but from release. It is through letting go that we integrate the various parts of ourselves and recognize the unity. When we let go, we align ourselves with the natural flow of life. We cease trying to control or manipulate every outcome, and instead we embrace the unfolding of the present moment. In this space we find that the parts of ourselves we once thought were lost are simply waiting to be discovered anew. Letting go of control, expectations, and attachments opens the door to a more expansive and authentic version of ourselves. The more we release, the more room we create for what truly matters: love, connection, creativity, and peace. Wholeness, then, is not something to be achieved, it is something to be recognized and allowed. It is the understanding that we are already whole, but our attachments and resistance have kept us from realizing it. Through letting go, we drop the layers of illusion that obscure our true nature, and in doing so, we return to the core of who we are: a boundless, ever-evolving presence that is always complete. In the dance of life. Life is a dance, fluid, unpredictable, and beautiful in its rhythm. We often think of life as a series of events, milestones, and achievements, but it is so much more than that. The dance of life is not about reaching a specific destination or completing a set of tasks. It is about embracing the movements, the flow, and the ever-changing steps that we take, whether in joy or in struggle. In this dance, we are not the choreographers, but rather the dancers, responding to the music of existence, moving in harmony with forces larger than ourselves. The dance of life involves a constant interplay of opposites, light and dark, joy and sorrow, birth and death. These contrasting forces are not enemies, but partners in the dance. Without one, the other cannot exist. It is the tension between them that gives life its depth and complexity. When we accept both the easy and difficult moments as part of the same dance, we learn to move through life with grace, even when the steps are challenging. Life does not ask us to be perfect dancers, it asks us only to be present in the rhythm, to flow with what is unfolding. At times the dance feels effortless, and we move with the beat, as if everything is in perfect synchrony. In these moments, life seems to unfold with ease, and we experience a sense of flow. But just as a dancer must sometimes pause, stumble, or change direction, so too must we adjust to the unexpected turns that life brings. These interruptions are not disruptions, but invitations to explore new movements, new ways of being. The missteps, the pauses, the changes in tempo, all are part of the dance. They give us the opportunity to learn, adapt, and find a deeper sense of connection with the rhythm of life. In the dance of life, there is no fixed pattern. There is no one right way to move, no prescribed set of steps we must follow. The dance is uniquely ours, and it changes from moment to moment. Sometimes we lead, sometimes we follow, sometimes we move boldly, and at other times we move with subtlety and grace. The beauty of this dance lies in its unpredictability, in the space between each movement where we find freedom. Life is not something to be controlled or mastered, but something to be experienced, felt, and surrendered to in each step. As we move through life, we find that each dance, each rhythm, each step is a reflection of who we are at that moment. We cannot control the tempo, the music, or the changes in the rhythm, but we can choose how we respond to them. The dance of life is not about holding on to certainty or seeking perfection. It is about being present in the moment, allowing ourselves to feel the music, and trusting that the next step will come when it is time. When we surrender to the dance, we become one with the movement of life, no longer struggling against it, but moving in harmony with it. The dance of life is not just an individual experience, but a collective one. We are all dancing together, each of us contributing to the overall rhythm of existence. Our movements affect others, and the dance is enriched by the interconnectedness of all beings. It is through this collective dance that we learn the deeper meanings of connection, empathy, and love. Each of us brings our unique style, our own story to the floor, and in doing so we create a shared experience that transcends the individual. Together we compose the symphony of existence, each step building upon the one before, each movement carrying its own significance. In the dance of life there is no end to the music, only moments of pause and reflection. Every step, every turn, and every change in rhythm is an opportunity to express ourselves, to grow, and to deepen our understanding of the world and our place within it. The dance continues with no clear beginning or end, no fixed form or structure. It is a living, breathing creation that evolves with every step we take. As we surrender to this dance, we realize that we are both the dancers and the dance itself, ever changing, ever moving, and forever part of the greater flow of life. Life is a dance, an ever-changing flow of experiences, moments, and emotions. It is not about control, but about surrendering to the rhythm of existence, embracing both the light and the dark. Through letting go, we release attachments that no longer serve us and open ourselves to the freedom of the present. We move through life's challenges and joys, learning from every step, every pause, and every change in tempo. Wholeness is not something to attain, but something we discover through acceptance and integration of all we are. In this dance, we are not just the dancers, we are the dance itself, flowing in harmony with the universe, always evolving.